right, it is now 5:31, so we'll go ahead and begin our Planning Commission work session. I'd like to welcome everybody here today. Just a point of notice that Commissioner Jensen is not in attendance. She had to be called in late for work, and so won't be able to attend today, so she's excused. Looking forward to everybody's presentations and discussions, and so with that, we'll go ahead and allow Brandon to give us some good training.
Oh, yes, I'm looking forward to giving you some training. This will be helpful for
Yeah, I was going to say, and even like 6 months in, they made me run a meeting when the chair and vice chair were gone. It was like some hazing ritual or something.
Brandon, and like in that case, from just the procedure of the meeting, like if we both find out that myself or Commissioner Strong, last minute aren't there, do you want to be made aware of there's going to be a temporary chair? Yeah. Or if I just reach out to one of these very qualified individuals and just ask them to do that, but also let you be made aware of? Okay. All right. Okay. We'll do that if needed. Yeah. Okay. The gavel. No. Yeah.
conflicts of interest.
And on just on that note, I'll just, as long as the commission's, I'm not reaching out to everybody. You know, we'll ask the meeting before if you know you're gonna be out of town, but if something comes up, just reach out, like, you know, Commissioner Jensen did this afternoon. She just had a work conflict that came up late. And so, again, I won't be reaching out to anybody to check on you. You just let me know.
Question on that one. So let's say you knew we were gonna only have 3 people there. You would probably let us know just so we're aware. And then if we had a conflict of interest, then we'd be like, oh, well, I have a conflict of interest on item, whatever it is. And then we can decide if we can continue or just take that one item off, I guess, at that point, right? Okay.
Yeah, and of course, you know, staff would advise us on how to proceed. But it is, you know, we kind of think, well, we have to have at least 3 people for a quorum just to have a meeting. But then the nuance of, it doesn't make a matter if the difference if there's 3, 4, or 5 up here, or even with our alternate, 3 people have to vote positively, you know, for a positive recommendation. And so, of course, something that, you know, I've kind of been focused on, we got to make sure we get 3 people here, but then, you know, a little unsure on the number of votes, which this is clear. 3, regardless of who's attending in the commission, 3 votes. question on that, Brendan. So if there's not if there's not consensus, 3 votes, you know, is the commission required to make recommendations that they would agree to? Or if it's either split or it's just not 3 votes, is there, do we need to arrive at some other conclusion? Like, do we say, well, we don't forward a positive recommendation? Is that, what is the outcome in that case, expected outcome?
If we get to a situation where there's no recommendation, I think I've seen it where we don't forward any.
Sorry, the question being,
Like, what if we end up
if,
with no recommendation?
what do you mean no recommendation?
Well, if you don't, the first condition, if you don't get 3 agreeing
Right, so if
votes,
you, for example, have
Yeah.
4 members present and it's 2-2 vote.
2-2,
Or you have 3 members present and it's a 2-1 vote.
yeah,
Then that is the same as a recommendation for denial.
okay. Okay,
Exactly.
So it's treated as a recommendation for denial.
okay, all right. Commissioner Strong.
So just so I'm clear, so it would be a recommendation for denial, but if you can't come to an agreement, what would be a situation where you'd pass a recommendation on with, or send it on with no recommendation?
That's not a thing. So failure to give a timely recommendation is treated as a recommendation for denial. If you just didn't give recommendation, it's treated as a recommendation for denial. If you vote and you don't have 3 votes on either way, then it's treated as a recommendation for denial.
Okay, because I was just
So-
reading on the notes here, it said, send it on to council with no recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, so that would be a recommendation for denial.
Okay.
I don't think we've encountered that, but, you know, hopefully we can, you know, arrive at consensus in some future agenda item, but.
In my tenure here, we've had 1-2-2 vote that was sent to the council as a recommendation for denial.
Oh, okay. Okay. I will, and just on that note, personally, for each of us, back to the conflict of interest, and I hadn't really thought about this, as you're looking at the agenda prior to, and, you know, if you see that you might have a conflict, just, you know, maybe let me know ahead of time. Only in the rare case we have limited people, you know, or just be aware that, obviously, at the start of the policy session, we address that, but we'd hate to be in a, you know, a rare case of only 3 people and then one conflict that maybe, had we known, we probably would table that or something, you know, so anyway.
Hey, quick question for you while we're here. So I noticed the developer applicant presentation is a 10-minute max, but I don't think we ever really enforce that. That's not something that's like a hard set rule or law, is it?
I was wondering the same thing, because truthfully, go back and look in the bylaws and see if that's
So-
I'm not aware of anything
Is it in there?
codified in.
Yeah,
Is it in?
it's in here.
It's in the bylaws?
Yep.
Okay.
You know, in many cases, for example, Stephen presenting tonight or staff, if the applicant isn't here, is staff presenting their presentation or just whatever they put together on the agenda? And if the applicant isn't here, then we just skip that, even though some similar questions would come back to staff or the applicant, right? Okay.
That's one of the challenges too sometimes for staff, is if they aren't here, then some of those questions end up coming back.
Yeah, there's a lot that could be asked to the applicant, you know, and I'll be completely honest, sometimes I'm not sure if I should be asking staff my questions or the applicant, you know, and so I'll just put a caveat there. I apologize if my questions go to you, Stephen, as staff, and it should have been targeted to the applicant at some future question, but anyway, okay.
You as the chair, you can grant additional time at their discretion, and I wanted to, I put an asterisk there, because I have a question, I thought we'd have a little discussion with Marcus. Is the chair, I know we've been pretty firm, I know in the last year or two, we've had a few members who had a little bit of a struggle in trying to rein them in a little bit on their length. Is it possible to truly give additional time, or does that kind of start? For the time allotment for public comments?
So for public comments and public hearings, we do not give additional time. So we would run into potential First Amendment violations if we were to pick and choose winners and losers as to who gets to speak more. So we don't do that. We don't want to violate people's constitutional rights.
And sometimes, if someone wants to make a comment, they fill out the form. They can do it, can they do it online or old school technology, paper and pen? In what they're filling out, like let's say someone wants to make a comment on sidewalks. In the form, can they just say, I want to talk about sidewalks? Or do they have to write out like, okay, here's my 3-minute discussion. What's required of the public to put on the request to speak in the public hearing?
Right, so we don't do public comment in planning commission. We just have public hearings on specific agenda items. So they would need to speak on something relevant to that agenda item.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess on this, you know, the public comment thing is really only relevant to city council where we do have
okay.
public comment. As far as the, 5 minutes for individuals representing a group, I'm trying to get us to move away from that because I don't think that is legally compliant.
Okay.
So, that being the case, yeah, so I guess on this, I would just say, again, we don't have a public comment, so we're talking about public hearings in a planning commission context. And they would just have to say, they can put whatever they want on their form, but what they're commenting on needs to be germane to the public hearing. The agenda item.
Yeah.
I just, one quick follow-up, and it sounds like maybe it's being addressed if we go away from the 5-minute. Individuals representing a group, does it have to be like an organization? Is that just
Yeah,
like
so,
me and my neighbor?
this is part of the problem, is that this creates potential for manipulation. So you can have, nothing about that says it has to be anything that is organized or incorporated or whatever, some sort of official entity. So I could come in representing a group known as the Draper household and give myself 2 extra minutes, even though I'm really just speaking for myself. And then I could also come in as representing a group known as Eagle Mountain City Attorneys for or against a certain item, and now I get an additional 5 minutes representing a separate group. I mean, you see how this is problematic.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah,
Like-
then,
oh, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, yeah, then maybe we want to look at revisiting this in our bylaws, because this is just copied and pasted straight over. So the way it's showing is exactly how we have it. So it'd be good to go back per Marcus's suggestions and kind of maybe clear out those last 2 bullet points.
Commissioner Strong.
Yeah, if we table a motion, does the applicant have the right to say, okay, I don't care what the planning commission says, I want to take it directly to the council? Can they do that, or do we effectively delay it until we come up with an answer?
So, I mean, it's contextual. So if an applicant comes in and they want an item to be heard, and the planning commission is not ready to decide on how to recommend, tabling it once is probably fine. The statute says that that failure to give a timely recommendation is considered a recommendation of denial. So it's really context specific as to what constitutes a timely recommendation. If something were truly time sensitive, perhaps even tabling it once could be considered failure to make a timely recommendation. Under most circumstances, I would say tabling it 2 weeks, you're fine. They can't just go straight to the city council.
Can I've had this question before because it's more for my education about when to make my comments or discussion as it relates to after hearing staff. Because let's say I've had 10 points I want to talk about or ask questions, some of which might be for staff and their review or for the applicant. And in context of when that public hearing occurs, are those comments from, the technical questions, are those better from the commission to be had after the public hearing or before the public hearing?
That's a good question. I've seen it both ways. I've never seen anybody never seen an issue made about it.
Okay.
Are you aware of any issues with that, Marcus?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Just
Making their comments before the public hearing or after?
commission questions and comments to either staff or the applicant.
I think you can do it both before and after. It's really
Okay.
whatever you want to do.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I don't think there's any restriction doing it before and
Okay.
after. I mean, you can do both.
Okay, all right. And if, because so then sometimes, of course, your next step is back to that last slide. You do the public hearing is closed, the public hearing comment period's over. The developer can respond to any of those comments. And then we have a discussion, and if we have questions, the developer can come up additionally to answer some of those questions, if that's when that happens? Is that freedom to come and go for the applicant allowed?
I think that it comes
If
to
it-
an invitation. I think
Okay.
you have the ability to welcome it. I've seen
Okay.
it
Yeah, I know Commissioner Allen has done that. Okay.
People back up, I don't know that you have to.
It's hard to know which of all the questions are just for the applicant, right? At the time when you're ready, like, gosh, is this the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Some chairs, like now we've got to get moving on with
Yeah,
the meeting, so I think you have some discretion.
okay, thanks.
To introduce a motion, that's what we'll talk about. So, waiting for the chair to, I guess, kind of get the chair's attention and wait for him to call upon you is kind of the appropriate thing to do. Once you have the floor, the floor's been yielded to you, then you can make that motion and wait for another member to second your motion. If no seconds made, then the motion dies and then someone can make another. But again, just I guess the key obvious is that there has to be a second to the motion. Debating or discussing the motion. A member who's made the motion is entitled to speak first. So whoever makes the motion, you get to speak first about, I guess it makes sense, you get the opportunity to kind of explain why you're.
This would be after the second is made, so the motion is made, but now if there's discussion that comes up, okay, internally, okay,
Everybody gets to speak.
okay,
You all should have the opportunity to speak in the debate if you'd like
okay.
to. You can see there the chair could alternate between those for and against the motion. There's some interesting things. I think that a lot of this we may have picked out from the bylaws. We avoid using a person's name in debate. This is another thing too that sometimes comes up. All questions should be directed to the chair. We'll occasionally see, especially we'll see the public who are involved in these meetings, they'll start asking the staff questions.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily appropriate. The meeting should run through the chair rather than someone like the developer or the public directing questions to Marcus or Megan. Maybe they've got a question for Megan. Let's run the meeting through the chair, and then ask it.
Hey, quick question before we move on. So directing it through the chair, is that primarily relating to people who are coming during the public hearing, or is that for all of us up here as well? Just kind of run it through, everything through him, or?
I think
I think technically it applies to everybody, but we've never rigidly enforced these rules.
Yeah.
And I don't think, if a planning commissioner that wasn't the chair wanted to ask a staff member a question or an applicant a question, we've never been rigid about limiting that ability. So, if we need to amend our bylaws to conform to our actual practice, then we should do that. But I don't think that we've ever been inclined to be so formal. That being said, I do think it would be inappropriate for somebody in a public hearing commenting or an applicant to be addressing staff directly.
Okay.
Unless it's like, hey, can you move to the next slide kind of thing.
Yeah, I've never seen limit the planning commission ability to ask questions of staff.
And I would probably just say, from Commissioner Allen's time as chair from my previous experience, just trying to point out, I'll do my best to, give you the floor. And then from that point, I've never had a problem that Commissioner Allen asks a question directly to staff or something like that. But I think as long as we're trying to do our best, and I need to probably be a little bit more observant, making sure that I, call on different commissioners or give them the floor to ask a question. I think that would be,
Yeah,
that's kind of how we proceed,
That seems pretty good, because then we're not just talking over each other or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
So those last two bullet points on there, and this is again, is related to just your discussion about a motion. Asking a brief question doesn't count as your turn to speak.
And I think in that unique case where we only have three, if we only have three, then it's, all three have to agree on that, so it's a little, we'll just have to watch for that as it comes up, okay?
So that's just kind of, I think every time we've done this, it's been a helpful
Yeah.
reminder. Honestly, I learned something new or reminded, oh yeah, we have that. So very, very helpful to go through those. Commissioner, Chair Hess, you brought up the question of exceptions versus variance. We know what a variance is. It's based on the 5 criteria that are in the state code and in our code. We can repeat what's in the state code. That's a really, it's hard to get a variance. It's hard to approve a variance because you have to meet all 5 of those criteria, the hardship and the, I can't remember all of them right now, but if I thought of them, I'm sure I could, but Sam, from you on that. But, the substantial justice and all that, but, we can, so there's ways that, let me say this, a variance is something where the applicant is like, okay, I have an application, this is something that happened a lot of, Vivian Park, you know where that's up, Provo Canyon. It was a 100-year plat, a 100-year-old plat when I was there, so it's well over, it's 110 years old. So, and they platted, most of those lots were 25 feet wide. And so, you couldn't, we had, I can't remember the setbacks now, but basically if you applied the setbacks, you couldn't, nobody could build on those lots. And so, we always, pretty much always approved variances on those lots, or else they wouldn't have, it was easy for someone to make, to
Yeah.
prove that they were entitled to a variance, because if there wasn't one, they wouldn't have substantial property, they wouldn't enjoy substantial property rights. So it was very easy to request a variance there. Most of the ones we see here don't pass muster. So, our code does allow for exceptions. The legislative body goes through, they establish a code of ordinances for us to use for land use reviewing and land use applications. And there are some there's a lot of thought that goes in, obviously, in preparing a code. And so occasionally some exceptions are inserted into the code. For instance, we all, a number of you will remember the Atkinson family that had the property up on Horizon, and they had an issue with they wanted an addition to their home, and they had some challenging constraints, and this body granted an exception to allow them to build. If you remember that exception actually didn't have very good criteria associated with it. We proposed an amendment to the code so that if that ever comes to us again, we have exception. We would have some criteria by which to evaluate an exception request. So those exceptions are different from a variance. They're just kind of a premeditated thing where it's the council that already decided, okay, we run into this issue. If somebody has a situation where the Atkinsons had a setback issue, and if they run into this issue, we're going to give maybe we give the planning commission the ability to grant an exception of 10 feet based on these 5 reasons or conditions. And so tonight, I think you might run into, Steve,
Yeah.
if you've got a couple of those on some of your applications, so you're going to
Yeah.
run into some exceptions.
Yeah.
tonight.
Commissioner Strong, you wanted to?
Yeah, just a quick question on a variance, and I thought of it when you mentioned repeat variance. You're going back and doing it over and over and over again. I've been in other organizations where they had a rule that if you had the same variance requested 4 or 5 times and approved it, that you were forced to go back and take a look at the code and fix it, rather than just keep giving, because variances should be the exception and not the rule, and very, very limited. And so if you get into the routine, then it takes that away.
Yeah, exactly.
And that would really, so just for example, there's a couple on both the 2 agenda items today where staff has come to that conclusion either by prior decisions made that those exemptions are ruled exemptions by staff or elected officials, rather than arriving at a threshold of a variance. Right, so we're taking the experience of our staff to say, hey, here's the ones that don't meet the code per the letter of law, but we consider them exemptions. Okay, that was a question I had today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's one that we deal with a little bit. So the setbacks, there's an ability for the planning director to vary a setback by, what is it, 10%? At 10% based on certain criteria. So occasionally, I can say, okay, we can vary this 10-foot setback by 1 foot because there's some, I can't remember the exact criteria, but maybe it's because of topography of the property or something. So those are built into the code.
Okay. And if that were reviewed on a staff agenda, that would be noted, I'm guessing, and that would be kind of, hey, the exemption is this.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. So
All right.
if you ever see
Okay.
an exception, if we have an exception that we're bumping up against when we're reviewing an application, and we're not, most of those are gonna come to either the planning commission or
Yeah.
council for approval, we're gonna give you some type of recommendation.
Yeah.
We've evaluated and analyzed the situation, we're like, well, based on what our analysis, it looks like we recommend granting this exception for this reason.
Yeah. Any questions from the commission? Additional questions? Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. Okay. With that said, we have a few minutes. We can do a preview of the agenda item. Is there anything over the next couple minutes that the commission would like to have a preview of? Or should we take a break? Okay. Let's go ahead and close our working session, and we will reconvene at 6:30 to start our the action advisor or our policy session. Thank you. Okay. Welcome to tonight's Planning Commission meeting. We will begin our meeting at 6:30 p.m. And we'd first like to acknowledge the absence of Commissioner Jensen. She's excused as she had a a late work engagement that she couldn't miss. But with that, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if you will please join me, stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on our agenda is our declaration of conflicts. We'll start with Commissioner DeCoursey.
None?
Commissioner Hess has none. Commissioner Strong.
None.
Commissioner Allen.
None.
Commissioner Free.
None.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we'll review or make a motion on our meeting minutes from our August 11th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. Any comments that need to be mentioned? Commissioner Allen.
Yeah, just a minor one at the end of page 1 onto page 2 where we were approving the meeting minutes from July 28th. Just the tally at the bottom says 3 yeses, 2 abstentions. Should be 3 yeses and 3 abstentions.
Thank you for that clarification. Anything else that we saw in our review? Okay, hearing no other suggestions, I'll entertain a motion from the commission.
Chair, I move that we approve the August 11th, 2026 Planning Commission minutes with that one correction I noted.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Allen to approve the meeting minutes with the condition made, and a second made by Commissioner Strong. Any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, we'll proceed with our vote. Commissioner Hess votes yes. Commissioner Strong.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Commissioner Free.
Yes.
And Commissioner DeCoursey.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is our status report. Brandon, anything that you'd like to present or give us a report on?
Last council meeting was very, there was a lot on it for Councillor Clark and others who were there. But as for staff, there were just a couple of ordinance, land use planning wise, it was on the lighter side, I would say. There were 2 code amendments they were the codes related to changing for street names, like if you have a Ox Way and then it goes into Bovine Way, we want some consistency, and so so anyway, we saw that one approved. The other items were not. That was the only 2 items on the agenda. I did want to bring up a couple of things. I've been communicating with the Planning Commission about attending the Utah APA conference, which is on the 9th and 10th of September, and we did, those 3 of you who said you were available, we did get you registered, and so you should be able to just go to the conference, and they'll have your name tag and everything there, and you're all good to go. The other thing, I did send out an email to you, letting you know that Meta is interested in hosting us for a tour. That would end up being, if we have multiple planning commissioners there, it'd obviously end up, we'd have to notice it as a meeting, but we've done that before. I took you on a field trip before in the little senior bus, so it isn't unheard of. So if you'd like to, just think if you'd like to do that. I'll get back with Meta, David Williams from Meta, and I'll let him know. He was thinking of maybe sometime in October or November to tour Meta, and thought that maybe he could even get in touch with QTS and see if we could go over and tour there as well. So, but that's what I've got for you tonight.
Thanks. And just a personal note, last Tuesday's city council meeting, I made it to about 10:15, so I did miss the planning stuff. So it was a good meeting to attend to, but important. But I didn't last till the planning commission stuff that would have been related, but that's okay. Yes. Thank you, Brandon, for that update. Next, we'll move to our action and advisory item on the agenda. Our first item is item 7A, resolution of Eagle Mountain City approving the second amendment to the Brylee Farms Phase B development agreement. This will be presented by our staff planner, city planner Stephen.
All right. You want to have Brandon?
Before,
Question first.
we've had a little audio problem.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if we could do a quick sound check on that mic at the front.
This one, or this one up here? Okay. The green light is on, but that doesn't mean it might, go ahead.
Testing. That's what I thought when I was upgrading.
Oh, yeah.
It was the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Maybe try it again.
Testing.
No?
It's not. So I wonder if we should, if the public member needs to come up, maybe we need to.
Okay.
Actually go sit
Okay. Well, if it's not one thing, it's probably a couple other things. Thanks for doing our best to try to keep that together, but thanks for knowing that. I now that you mention it, yeah, it didn't sound amplified, but.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for catching that so it could be recorded correctly online. All right, Stephen.
All right. If you recall, in the past, probably over the past 2 months, you've seen this development agreement come back for its first amendment. And we discussed this, I think, in the last one, that this change was contemplated. So really what's being asked is this section is, originally they were supposed to, the developers were supposed to build 40 three-story townhomes that had garages of at least 600 square feet. So since that requirement was done, they've built 20 of them. And now they want to come back and working with the council decided that instead of, they're going to have those 20, but then with the remainder of the units possible that haven't been, like the foundations haven't been dug or poured for the two-story ones, there's 40 left open lots, and now they're going to change all those 40 to be still larger garages rather than your 20 by 20 garage at 400 square feet. I think these ones come to be closer to between 480, 400, I think it says 490 square feet. So I think they're still 20 feet wide, but then they're a little bit deeper. So I think the trade-off was, yes, we're getting smaller garages, but now we're getting more bigger garages rather than just 20 more of the 600 square feet. Plus these two-story units will have a basement in them as well. So it doesn't eliminate, whereas the three-story before didn't have basements. So now this is a bigger garage and a basement, just like, it's the same floor plan as the two-story ones were originally. They're just gonna be a little bit deeper of garages. So that's really the only change. Staff's recommending approval. I mean, here's a map you can see really fast. So they've designated where they've built the three-story ones here. The two-story ones that are outlined in this darker blue, those have started construction, so they're not gonna change those. And then everywhere else where it's this 2 DG, this is where they're gonna have those bigger ones. So we just felt like it was a good enough change. Overall, we're still getting bigger garages, what the city council wanted, so that people can still pull 2 cars in, have garbage cans in there. They showed how there's not gonna be enough of a, I think it was gonna be more than one step in the garage, so they wanted to fight around that for cars. So I feel like it's a reasonable change, reasonable request from the applicant. So we're good with it.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Yeah.
Commissioner Strong.
So it's the same number of lots, houses, everything else, you're just changing the configuration?
Yeah,
To a
yeah, there's-
two-story with a basement and a bigger garage?
So we're getting less three-story units, but more bigger garages in the project overall. But yeah, no additional units are being added to the project.
This is not a public hearing. Is the applicant here that wish to make any comments or clarifications? Yeah. Stephen, if you'll help him get the mic on as needed, or same setup, hopefully.
Okay, my name is Greg Wall with LandX Development, and we're the declarant for the Towns at Brylee Farms Phase B. And we met with the City Council twice in July and August at work sessions to kind of explain the situation and get input from them. But if you look at these ones with the red 3, these are 3-story units, and they have a 729 square foot garage, so it's actually a 3-car garage, and they're very nice townhomes. We're actually pretty proud of them, but they haven't generated as much sales interest as the other units that we're selling. And we weren't the original developer. The original developer did the first and second plat, so the green and the orange area. And they put the rest of the lots up for sale, and we were interested in buying them. During our due diligence period, we found out that their time frame had expired on their entitlements. So we had to come back to reinstate the entitlements, and there were a couple of provisions that the City Council wanted. One was to limit the number of units that could be rented out and not owner occupied, which we did and added to the CCNRs. The other one was to build 40 units that were 3 stories that had a minimum 600 square foot garage. So we built the first 20 of those 40 and the ones with the red 3s right here. But because they weren't generating as much sales interest, we came back to ask the City Council, and at the initial meeting, they were concerned that by replacing the 20 remaining 3-story units with the 600 plus square foot garage with a 2-story unit, the garages weren't large enough. So we went back and worked with our architectural partners, and this is actually one that I would like to show. If I give it to you on a jump drive, would that be easier? I've got it saved on a jump drive, or I can just put it in here. Is that an HDMI? Okay. Sorry. Oh, wait, that's mine. Okay. So this is the updated concept that we showed the City Council, and the mayor asked if we could make the garages 2 feet deeper, and we were actually able to make them about 4 feet deeper. So now the garages with this 2-story design with the deeper garage are just under 500 square feet, and we've engineered it to make sure there's no more than 1 step up from the garage, so you don't have a landing or anything extending into the garage. And we showed some different vehicles to scale to show that it would fit with garbage cans. We have a Ford F-150 pickup truck and a minivan. And anyway, I think it was pretty positively received by the City Council, but they did ask us, instead of proposing to replace the 20 remaining with the deeper garage, they asked if we could do more than that. And so we looked with our civil engineer at where we could do more, and we basically added the deeper garage design to everywhere that we could, which would include these 5 original buildings, which were going to be 3 stories, plus these 4 more. So instead of having 20 more of the 3-story with the larger garage, we'll have 40 more. There'll be 2-story with the larger garage, 500 square feet instead of 600, but it also has an unfinished basement that's about 530 square feet. So overall, we were trying to make it more attainable, and we think this is a good solution going forward, and we're requesting that this resolution be approved so that we can do the plat amendment to get the lots the correct size to build on. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any questions.
Yeah, just a technical question. On those units that you've now incorporated to a deeper garage, did that change your exterior footprint, or was it just internal layout that you had to adjust?
So the way that we did it is we made the garage itself deeper, and it, for lack of a better term, kind of snouts forward, but we wanted to maintain the 20-foot driveways. So the garage sticks out farther by 4 feet, but we push the whole unit back so that the edge of the garage is still at the 20-foot point on the driveway. So the end result is the inside of the units look the same and the layout's the same. The garage is deeper, it's now 24 feet deep. Okay. But the backyards, well, the backyards on these interior ones will still be 10 feet. We'll have to remove this trail and move it over. The backyards on these ones are deeper than 10 feet. They'll just be 4 feet shorter.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you for your time and coming to present. Okay. Let's see.
Thanks, Steven.
Since this is not a public hearing, I guess we'll have a discussion amongst any points that we want to discuss as commission. Okay. All right. Okay. Hearing no discussions or debate, I'll entertain a motion on this agenda item.
Chair, I move that we forward a positive recommendation to City Council for item 7A as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay. Before us, we have a motion presented by Commissioner Allen with a positive recommendation, followed by a second by Commissioner Strong. Any final discussion or debate? Okay, hearing none, we'll enter our votes, starting with Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Commissioner Free.
Yes.
Commissioner DeCoursey.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess is yes, and Commissioner Strong.
Yes.
Okay, that vote passes with 5 votes from the commission. Now the question is will there always be 2 cars in the garage, or will it be full of boxes and the cars outside? That is a matter for individuals in the future. Just saying, sorry. Okay. Next on our agenda is item 7B, thank you. A preliminary plat for Gateway Park Phase 3. This will also be presented by our city staff planner, Stephen.
All right, thank you. So this is the Gateway. I don't know how you're familiar with the Gateway Park is. So we're looking at area just west of this intersection of Mount Airy and Corey B. Ride Highway. So it's behind or west of Enbridge's facility and Eagle Mountain Storage. So the first request is we're going to start out with the preliminary plat. So it's a 3-lot preliminary plat. I think it's contemplated the final plat will just mirror this. It'll be the exact same one, not broken down into phases. It's really not a whole lot technical on this one. This will continue Wagstaff Way as it further curves down to the north, if you recall. I'm going to show you here as we're showing it. The plan is, so this is Wagstaff Way right here. So we're planning on bringing it down eventually to connect over to Spring Run Parkway and have it tee in there, and we'll plan to continue to try to get it to connect up further. And then this road here is this north-south road that we're showing on the plat. So, 2 significant roads there. Here you can see kind of what the plan is if everything continues as it should for that Wagstaff A or Road A in the Spring Run Plaza plat to connect there. So you can see how those 2 projects are working together as they develop. 2 things that we found during our review here is in the preliminary plat section, when it talks about that, it does mention that you can't have lots that front onto collector or arterial roads. which is pretty typical. I mean, if you think about all residential ones, usually, at least there's a local street and everything starts teeing off of that one. Or with commercial ones, usually there's internal roads, whether they're private or public, but usually not on collector roads. They'll usually front them, but there's usually access somewhere else. When this is a 3-lot plat, we don't really know how best to do that. Maybe the developer can come up with a way to do it. And if that's the case, as we recommend, is there, if they can find a way to reasonably do it, to try to get those connections on it. If it's not possible, we understand that, so we're just recommending that. And if they find a reasonable way to do it, to try to do that. And then the second one is, right now they're proposing that this north-south road right here, they've named it Gateway, I think Gateway Park Boulevard. However, because it will eventually curve and connect into Wild Blossom Boulevard, we're recommending that be the name, so that as you're traveling, those roads stay consistent with the naming. I think Brandon mentioned that's something we're trying to push right now, is keeping naming significant the same. It does help usually with emergency response as well, so we're not changing names right across the middle. You usually don't know exactly where that line is between the cities. So those are 2 recommendations. Other than that, we recommend that you forward a positive recommendation to City Council.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, just under, recommendation 1 there, the condition 1. So it's, if they can find a reasonable, unless they can find a reasonable way, how are we going to like monitor that? I mean, they might just say, I couldn't find a reasonable way. Are you like requiring certain number of iterations, or how are we going to kind of help with that? I mean, I'd love to trust them, right? I'm sure they'll do their best, but you never know, right?
It's a great question. I think it helps that we know what's going on lot 1, and I'm not sure if we're at liberty to share it. The applicant may. I don't really know if that's going to be a great, having internal roads, I don't know if it really allows lot 1 to function the way it's supposed to. And so that's why it doesn't really make sense then to have lot 2 have an internal road and lot 3, like it just doesn't make sense then. So we get that it's not ideal for the situation, but with only having 2 lots instead of 4 lots there, I don't think there's going to be as many access points onto that road. So, and that's usually the purpose of it. So it's not, you're not having multiple turns in and out of a collector road. So in this case, I don't think it's going to be much of a hassle.
Other questions? I did have a technical question. On the agenda item, you have it listed as industrial and business park, but when I look at the Title 17, the code, we have an industrial zone and then we have a business park zone. So
If you look at our code, business park's not actually a zone.
okay.
It's a category of 3 different zones put together.
Okay.
This was originally, so the Gateway Park was originally a master site in of itself. So there was a rezone, I can't remember when it was, 15 years ago maybe. And Lot 1 will actually be split. So the northern part of Lot 1 will be industrial, and the little, maybe the bottom 1/5 of it will actually be business park, and the rest will be business park. So I think eventually we'd probably like to see that rezoned to current zoning so that we can better deal with it. Right now we're kind of under a time crunch with getting this one done, so the zoning wasn't, what's contemplated here will work.
Okay.
It'll work there, just, all right.
Thanks. Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant here and wish to make any comments at this time? Okay. Oh, thank you.
It's bad enough to stand in front of you, now you just put me in the corner to hear me talk. Scott Hazard, I'm the developer, one of the developers applicants here. Just a couple of things. I do hope that you trust us and know that we tried our best for internal roads. There's really no way to accomplish that for the intended use. We have the constraint of, we've been calling it Gateway Park Boulevard, not a hill I'm going to die on. We propose the name change because the name change takes place at a boundary of the city. So it's not within the city where the name change takes place. And our consternation there was When it connects to the north, it's connecting into Wildflower, which is another master plan community in a neighboring city. And to avoid confusion, we wanted to name that branded our 600-acre project, which will also be called Gateway Park. So you'll be seeing that eventually. We've been working a lot with staff, with engineering, laid down horizontal. The transportation master plan that Stephen brought up was a collaborative effort between us and David Salazar to make sure we had connectivity between the cities going in. But that Gateway Park Boulevard, should you see fit to so grace us with that desire, that creates a constraint. And we're on the alignment of that boulevard. And to the east of us is the Enbridge Regional Gas Facility. And then just south of that to the east is the Eagle Mountain Storage Facility. And there's just no way to get a street in the middle and make the property usable. And if you look at the topography there, that's something that I would encourage you to contemplate as future plans are brought forth to you, that it's really easy to see these on a flat sheet of paper, but there's a tremendous amount of undulation and topography shifting and changing, some of which we're trying to mitigate for approvals that have already taken place for what you're going to hear right after us. But the topographical challenges and constraints also don't lend themselves to us creating an internal road and then still having developable property. It's pretty steep out there for some of that. This is all fairly flat. So anyway, I just wanted to comment there on the name change of the road and the internal roads, just so you had a little bit of context there. I believe that I have a couple of people here that want to share a little bit about the intended use of Lot 1, so I'll let them tell you what our intent is for Lot 1. Just so that you have some additional context, the lots on the south that will border up against the eventual right-of-way for State Road 73, that yellow line there that runs perpendicular to the highway, all the land between that yellow line and the highway is a corridor preservation that we sold with UDOT. You've probably seen that road. You can see that little snake road that goes up the hill there. There's a right-in, right-out that's constructed at the bottom. So we're in alignment with that road. That is where we permitted with UDOT to put the road and to construct it. So that's within the UDOT requirements and our permit rights when we sold that to UDOT. And that's why there's the constraint. But we wanted, because of the use of Lot 1, we didn't want to just create Lot 1. We wanted to construct the road all the way through to make sure we had traffic circulation to the signal at Mount Airy Drive, and then also an opportunity for right-in, right-out so that there was additional egress. So that was as much of a safety effort for us than anything else. To the south, just so that you have some context, our vision is probably a flex space type of use, similar to what we've already done out there, where you see Redemption Hill Church and Elevate Gymnastics and E2 Optics, and it would be a similar use to that as our vision for the balance of that property to the south. But I'll let Jason and Irene introduce their vision for Lot 1, and that was the impetus for creating the plat in the first place. Any questions for me?
Commissioners? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Actually, I do. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Strong has one.
I've got one question, and I was going to ask staff, but I think you're a better person to answer. What is reasonable to you?
What is reasonable?
The way the wording was, the road, the way they were laid out was whatever is reasonable. And I just want to know what reasonable is.
You mean, you're talking about for the internal roads?
Yeah.
I would just look at that and say, what is the use of the property? And what happens to the property if you create an internal road? It basically renders it unusable. If we were doing houses here, maybe, but Lot 1 is a 6-acre lot. And so the other consideration that I invite you to think about is that because these are such large lots, it's not like we're loading driveways onto it with houses. There's only a couple of opportunities to load on a 6-acre lot, so it shouldn't be a significant constraint. The site plan, it goes to DRC, I think, on Thursday for Lot 1. So you'll be seeing the site plan here really soon and understand how that circulation is proposed to take place. But that's how I would look at it, say, what's the intended use? Are the lots big enough where it doesn't create a safety issue loading onto the major collector or arterial roads? And recognize that when we built, so we're the same developers who built Eagle Mountain Storage, we did the Enbridge, all that plat was us too. and there was no real vision for the balance of the property at the time. Since then, we've acquired both gravel pits. And it's pretty much everything from the RCA property that you'll hear for this commercial site plan, the folks that brought us to the Walmart. Everything from there north to Wildflower, and from Spring Run to the Power Line Corridor. It's pretty much the whole, and that's why we named it Gateway Park, because we see this as the gateway to the city. It's pretty much all zoned industrial currently, but we're working on a master plan that would mix the uses significantly. We're looking to add some significant retail base into that area, looking at some academic and institutional uses that we've just been pursuing. Nothing of that is approved, but GSBS, who has assisted the city in creating your future land use plan, they're the group that we've hired to help us create that vision and bring that to this body as well as to the council for discussion. But you'll see a roughly 600-acre master plan. We have been reluctant to sell any of that land until the master plan is vested. We moved on this one because there's some urgency, and it's a use that we think is a blessing to our community. So
we'll get, when you get the plan together, we'll get another look at it to see what the final configuration is, I assume.
yeah, the site plan for that lot one should be coming. Do you have a schedule for that, Stephen? I know our DRC meeting is on Thursday for that.
Yeah, it's just a pre-application meeting, so we haven't actually got the site plan application. So you'll probably see it hopefully in the next couple months.
Okay.
Hopefully sooner than that, but that's
All right, that's good.
Thank you. Okay. Since this is a public hearing, we will go ahead and open the public hearing comment period. It is 7:02. Anybody in attendance either online or in the audience that wish to make a public hearing comment? Yeah.
I believe these are not as, I don't know, Marcus, they're going to be the owners of lot one. You want them to speak as an applicant or as public hearing?
So they're,
They're going to be the ones that are developing lot one.
yeah, I mean, I would normally suggest that they speak as part of the applicant in that process if they're associated with the applicant in that way, and they're not general member. This is public comment in a public hearing is designed essentially for people who are members of the public. You know, the applicant is treated differently than the members of the general public as far as being able opportunities to speak.
Do we want to revise that and?
So, yeah, I mean, you know, they would have the opportunity, they can have the opportunity to speak after the public hearing if they want.
Okay, let's do that. If you'll hold on for just a sec, we'll just make sure there's anybody else that would like to make a public comment during the public hearing. Any comments online? Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. We do, hearing or seeing no public hearing comment, we'll go ahead and end the public hearing. It is 7:03. And we'll go out of order a little bit. Sorry about that. We'll go back to applicant for zoning one, and as part of the applicant, feel free to, present or discuss what you like. Please state your name and. Okay.
Okay, hi, I'm Irene Summers. I'm going to give you a little story just to begin. About 25 years ago, I moved here to Eagle Mountain. I was recently graduated from BYU. My husband told me that we shouldn't buy the townhome off of 800 North, that he found this really random town in the newspaper, and he drove me through dirt roads. And when we got to the Maverick in Lehigh Main Street, I told him, please turn around. There is no way in heck I'm going up that far. But we ended up moving there, and shortly after we moved there 25 years ago, I started a little preschool called Summer School. And that is where my passion began for teaching children and educating the kids of Eagle Mountain. Which brings me to here today. 25 years later, my passion grew so much so that I met with the State Department and we got a charter approved called Ripple Academy. And it just seems like it's the perfect opportunity to come to Eagle Mountain, where I first started my education, to give back to those students in the community, and it's where my kids first started going to school. They started at Pony Express Elementary, and so that's why I'm here. So the idea of our charter school comes from the idea that students often need to know the why. Why are they learning? And we thought, what better way to do that than to build a little town within our school where our students can apply their academics and see that 1 + 1 doesn't just mean numbers, but it could also apply to a bakery and to a vet and to a town hall. And so we wanted to give kids the experience that my kids got to have and that I got to have as a child, and that's pretend and play. But here in our school with our mini town, we want them to really see that anything is possible, and planting seeds and helping them become entrepreneurs, even at a young age, from kindergarten through 6th grade, which is what our school is going to be. So that is why I'm here today, to put a face to Lot 1, to tell you that we're very excited, very passionate about being a part of Eagle Mountain. It just seems perfect based off of my preschool experience here and the community. And you guys, the city of Eagle Mountain is where my family began. So it means a lot to me to be able to give back to the people that are bringing their families and their children here to be educated. And what a wonderful thing to be a part of. There's so many schools here, and to give kids opportunities to learn and to grow. So that is about our mission, is life-based learning. So thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Jason Ayu, been here just as long, 25 years, and I've coached here. My kids are raised here, and again, I currently work at BYU as an associate athletic director, but before that I coached at Cedar Valley, I coached at Westlake, I coached everywhere. I'm currently a bishop, second term bishop for a Polynesian award here in Eagle Mountain, and so I've seen a real general need for kids to be able to learn with their hands, to take the application of just rote memorization and to apply it. And so when Irene brought up this opportunity to have it in a school, I jumped on because I feel like there's such a humongous need for that, and at least an opportunity to have that here, and no better place than Eagle Mountain. Ifo Pili was my counselor in my branch presidency. And so I used to say I was blue through and through because I was born in Provo, but my heart is right here in Eagle Mountain, and that's why we feel very strongly about the town, about putting our school here. We're 3 members of our board are Eagle Mountain, and we're not an outside product coming in. We're here, and we're in the community, and we're with the people, and we're with the kids, and we just want to give them the opportunity to learn in a different way. We'll still do our normal classroom setting, but they're able to apply it in the school rather than trying to apply it sometime outside of school. And so that's why we're here. And I really appreciate the opportunity and the time. I brought many of my young men scout groups, and we would just sit in the back and watch city council. This is the first time I got to actually press the button and be on the city council. So such a cool opportunity, but thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for coming and presenting, or at least introducing yourself. And of course, we'll look forward to, reviewing Lot 1 in the near future. Okay, great. Any follow-up questions or discussions from the commission? Commissioner Allen.
Yeah, Mr. Hazard brought up that question about the street name. So it does cross into Saratoga Springs. So like our code, we're saying, is more for Eagle Mountain, right? When crossing right-of-way, it shall not contain directions and shall not change as it crosses. How does that affect going to another city? Would emergency services still hate that? Like just because it hits a border of a city and transitions over? Because I get his concern, like, hey, he wants to have that development, their own names, their own identity, which I get. But again, from emergency services question.
Right. I mean, honestly, I can't speak for what exactly they want to see. I think I can just imagine, right? I don't think we're always going to be responding to everything right in Eagle Mountain. Like, they can go over the border and respond. So I just think it just makes more sense too. Is you're getting on a road, you want to know you're on that road, and it's not going to change your name. If you get on Wild Blossom Boulevard, it's going to in Wild Blossom Boulevard, it's not going to change. So, and I understand the applicant's desire to brand their project. I just think for the city as a whole, I just think it's in the city's best interest to keep it that name, and that's why we're recommending it.
Code we just adopted, I think, last week, I think actually requires that we maintain the same name. So, well, I understand the desire, that is entering into some residential subdivision in another city. I mean, it is a road that's connecting that way, and our code requires to maintain that consistency. So as that road connects up to the other city, Saratoga Springs, then all of a sudden we're going to end up with a violation of our code. And so to avoid doing that, I think it's prudent to just follow what's required under that code.
Yeah, thanks. Good. Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's the code, I mean, that's our job, is to make sure it's maintained. Plus, I mean, with GPS these days, I don't even know if I know half the roads I'm driving on, to be honest, the names of them. So with GPS, maybe it doesn't matter.
Okay, great. Any other discussion or debate? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion. I will go ahead and make a motion to afford a positive recommendation to City Council for Gateway Park Plat 3 preliminary plat with the following conditions. Unless the developer can find a reasonable way to construct internal streets on the proposed lots, the lots will be permitted to front onto the proposed arterial and collector streets. 2, Gateway Park Boulevard be renamed to Wild Blossom Boulevard.
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Hess proposed, made a motion for forward a positive recommendation with the conditions identified by staff, seconded by Commissioner Allen. Any need for clarification or discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and continue with our vote. We'll start with Commissioner Free.
Yes.
Commissioner DeCoursey.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess is yes. Commissioner Strong.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that vote passes with 5 votes. That motion passes. Okay. All right. Okay, next up on our agenda is our agenda item 7C, which is a site plan for Spring Run Plaza. This will be presented to us by Stephen as well.
Thank you. All right, as Scott mentioned, you're going to hear about these lots today. I think we've seen this enough that I'm not going to spend too much time where this is at. It's just east of Walmart. Here's the master site plan that was approved. And then we're focusing on lot 1. So in looking at it, there really wasn't a whole lot that we had to go back and forth with the applicant. I think we'd met with them so many times that they knew what our code was. They met it really well. So it's pretty straightforward. Here's the elevations for you. And I think this may be the first one that we've actually reviewed with our new updated architectural standards. So they did well in meeting with that. And just knew that we have to make them give us a breakdown of the percent of materials they use on each face of the building. So with lot 1, everything was fine, so we just recommend a positive recommendation to the City Council.
Okay, questions for staff? I have a couple, but anybody else? Okay. So there was no detail on the retaining wall or the grading. So as I was reviewing the package, we assumed that meant it met the code. Would that be correct as far as height of retaining wall, the grading and drainage?
So we are looking, the retaining wall is going to be looked at during the final plat because that is holding up Wagstaff Way. So I think, and the applicant can correct me, but I think that's where those plans are being sent. And so that'll give our city engineers a chance to look at those walls. And ultimately we'll look at them again when they apply for a building permit. So they'll need a separate permit for those. But no, and you didn't get the grading and drainage plan, but it was included in our packet. I just didn't give it to you guys.
Okay. So, and I would interpret that as it was received. It
received.
Your requirements, but there was nothing to discuss or present. Okay.
No.
That was part of my question
Sorry.
there. Yeah. Okay. I have a question regarding like pedestrian access off of Wagstaff Way. Is that a better question for the applicant? How are the pedestrians accessing the sidewalk along Wagstaff Way into Lot 1? Except for walking down the access road?
This might say, so there's a sidewalk right here,
Yeah.
and there will be,
Oh.
it doesn't show on the site plan here.
Okay.
But yeah, there will be
Okay.
the sidewalk right here that'll attach right here, so.
I saw that one down there. I was like, wait a second.
So I believe that's still the
Okay.
plan. You can correct me. That's not the plan?
Is the applicant here, would you like to come up and present anything that you would like to, or answer a couple of questions?
I can see it now.
Okay.
So as Stephen pointed out, by the way, I'm Jason Thompson with AWA, here representing the developer. I'm the civil engineer on the project. So in terms of the sidewalk on the west side that Stephen pointed out, in terms of ADA, we're required to have one access to a public right-of-way. So the access that we have provided, if you start at the southwest corner of Lot 1, it wraps down to the south, crosses the private drive, and then goes straight east over to Pierce Avenue. So that's the ADA route that we've designed. And part of the reason why there wasn't a sidewalk that goes north to Wagstaff Way is space constraints, basically. You pointed out the retaining wall earlier. You can see up around the northwest corner of that drive-through, there is some retaining wall. In that location, it's I think a maximum of 4 feet. Generally speaking, the retaining wall overall is about 6 feet or less. There is a portion on Lot 2 where it does get slightly taller than that. And that is part of our plat package. And with our resubmittal that's going to be happening here shortly, we'll be including our structural design for that wall.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you for coming. You might want to, you can hang out here if you need to for the second agenda item, but anyway, thank you. Let's see. This is a public hearing. And so we will go ahead and open our public hearing comment. It is 7:17. Anybody wishing to make comments in the audience or anything received online? Okay. Seeing no public hearing comments, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this agenda item. And any discussion from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Allen.
Yeah, with the drive-through, I actually don't mind it where it is. I mean, I know we don't necessarily love drive-throughs, but with that retaining wall there, it kind of blocks it from the street anyway. So I think when they're asking for exemption number 1, with having that drive-through between the building and public right-of-way, I think it kind of makes sense. It's blocked anyway. It's not going to be like an eyesore, which was my original concern until I saw that retaining wall. So I think that's definitely a reasonable request. And then with the escape lane, again, like you said, based on constraints, I don't see how they'd fit one in there with their current design and layout. So I don't have a problem with that either. So I think these requests are reasonable.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or discussion? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion for this agenda item.
Chair, I move that we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for item 7C as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion presented by Commissioner Allen that forwards a positive recommendation to City Council, followed by a second by Commissioner Strong. Any clarifications or questions? Okay, we'll proceed with a vote. First, Commissioner DeCoursey.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess is yes. Commissioner Strong.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Commissioner Free.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with 5 votes with a positive recommendation. Okay, next on our agenda is 7D, site plan for Spring Run Plaza Lot 2, also presented by Stephen.
All right, this is I'll skip all this. This is just the lot directly to the east of Lot 1. again, I think the one thing that is a note on, you can see on the site plan is when they were developing this site, they were 2 parking stalls short. And I'm going to note, we appreciate the applicant. Originally, they had a discrepancy in their parking, the way they're calculating it. So I think they actually ended up having to shrink the buildings a little bit, which I know is not usually the ideal situation, but it allowed them to meet their parking requirements, assuming that they're going to be permitted to have a shared parking agreement with Lot 1, because they will need those extra 2 spaces that were provided on Lot 1. So Lot 1 was overparked by 2 spaces, and so with the shared parking, the 2 lots will even out between each other. So that is one of the conditions of approval we're recommending. Let me turn that off real fast. Sorry. And then the second one comes with the elevations, again, here on the, mostly on this east elevation. So if you note that it's showing as it's 47%, and the stone and the cement are both considered the high quality material, which they're required to have 60% of on any primary facade or anything. I think it's a facade facing a primary street. So when looking at it, we're looking at this facade here, and I think we understand that I think on both the north and the south, they met that 60%, but staff feels that with this facade facing what's going to be called Pierce Avenue,
Yes.
right? We gotta change the name. That was also going to be considered a primary facade, or at least one facing a primary street. So that's one of our recommendations, to have that number bumped up to 60%, so they'll just have to increase the stone or the fiber cement on there and reduce the stucco. So however they want to do it, or just change that elevation to meet that requirement. So those are the 2 conditions of approval we're recommending with the positive recommendation.
Okay. Any questions? Sorry, any questions for staff? Okay. Anything you would like to present as the applicant or representative?
I think Stephen did a great job explaining this. It was just in reference to item number 1. Just want to request some consideration, or at least forward some consideration as far as that east elevation. And the reason for that request is the way the code reads is it states that, elevations that are visible from the primary road, there's some, room for interpretation there, I would say. As Steve noted earlier, I think our project is kind of the first one testing the new code that's been written. So, with that being the side elevation, so to speak, primary road being Wagstaff Way, Pierce Avenue, I guess, could be considered maybe a secondary road in this case. So just wanted, to request some consideration there for that particular elevation to be accepted with that 47%.
Okay. Does the question for Stephen, the code, it's specific to the primary street? It's the elevation facing the primary street, right?
Yes.
And does the code explain, in my mind, there's a larger street, and then there's another street, and if you were thinking of a driveway, well, your address is based on the front door, or your front door is your address, and of course your garages could be on this. I live on a corner lot, so but like in this case, that would probably be, and if it's not, I don't know if there's a condition in the code that it clarifies a primary street is where the access is gained to the lot, or if it's just on whichever of the 2 adjoining roads are larger. I don't know if there's conditions like that in there, but I agree with your interpretation that east elevation would be facing the primary street, since that's the most direct access from. That's how I would look at that, but that's just my thoughts. Any other comments or discussion from the council or commission? Commissioner Free.
I'll share it after the public hearing. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. We'll go ahead and open our public hearing comment period. Any comments wishing to be made or received online on this agenda item? Okay. Sorry, we opened that at 7:25. I forgot to mention the time. Seeing no comments, we'll go ahead and end the public hearing at 7:25. And questions or discussion, Commissioner Free?
Yeah, so, as you know, I'm an appraiser, so I look at costs and different things, and I can see why, for me, and that's one reason to want 47%, right? It's 'cause you can raise that cost up, and that can make it detrimental to, I don't know about these guys, but the retail developments I've seen, when the costs go up, the rent goes up, and those coming in just have to pay more, and that's just kind of how they cover it. And usually that works for certain tenants, and that's just fine. But I did notice that, you know, on the primary south elevation, they've got 81% there, so they could shift some of that maybe over to the other side to offset some of those costs, and so it would be potentially a limit. And I'm okay with doing that, you know, and that may offset some of that differential cost, because you're, you know, 29% above and you're 13% below on the other one, so you could just kind of offset some of that and still cover all the requirements of the city without additional costs, just some design changes. And so I think it's a reasonable request, and maybe some just moving things around a little bit would offset that. And so I think it's, in that regard, is, I think, reasonable. So, and would still look really nice.
Thanks. Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, and I think the purpose of the code is to make sure the sides facing major roads look good, right? So if you're on a corner lot, you're kind of in trouble because if you got two major roads around it, right? So maybe we need to look at the code and readjust it to focus on if you're on a corner. Because I get his interpretation too. It says primary. I mean, which one is the primary? But if you're on a corner lot, you could maybe have two major roads around it. So, I mean, that won't affect necessarily him right now, but I understand like the purpose of the code is to make sure it looks good and is presentable as you drive by. So maybe Commissioner Free's suggestion could work about maybe shifting some of that over to make the eastern edge look good. But to me, it looks like that street on the east is also going to be pretty busy as well. So we want it to look pretty good.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on this agenda item presented for 7D.
I'll make a motion to recommend a positive recommendation to City Council for the Spring Run Plaza Lot 2 site plan with the following conditions. The east elevation shall be clad at least 60%, high quality natural material, shared parking and maintenance agreement to be filled with staff as part of the site plan application.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Strong to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council with the conditions noted by staff. And Commissioner has seconded that motion. Any need to clarify or final discussion? Okay, I will move to our vote. Commissioner Hess votes yes. Commissioner Strong?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Free?
Yes.
And Commissioner DeCoursey?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with 5 votes. Thank you for your time and presentation. Okay, next on our agenda item is 7E, a public hearing for an ordinance for the Eagle Mountain City to amend the Municipal Code 1760-130 retaining wall construction standards. This will be presented by our city engineer, Vince Hogue. If I mispronounce your last name, you'll clarify that for me, right?
Yeah, it is
Okay.
Hogue.
Is
Hogue.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It is mispronounced a lot, so. Chair Hess, Commissioners, good to be here with you this afternoon. This presentation is more on the technical side, so hopefully you have your engineer hats on. But there were some changes. Here, let me pull this over. It's the right way. Got it. Okay. So as as I've been here, which has been a couple years at this point, this has been one of the code sections that has come up a lot as far as engineering questions, and not just on the engineering side, but a lot of questions from the planning side, a lot of questions from our building inspectors as they're out watching things get built. And we found that there were some things that needed some changes and some clarifications to bring this kind of up to speed with engineering practice, and also just in safety standards, and some clarifications in building permit requirements and things like that. And so we tried to address all of those things in this change. And really, it's almost a complete change of what was there before. The previous standard was really kind of a prescriptive standard that it had specific examples and specific requirements for those examples, for rockery walls or timber walls or things like that. But there were some limitations and things that weren't addressed, such as surcharge loading and things like that, that can make a big difference when we're talking about the type of wall that's being built on a lot. Height limitations, we'll talk about that a little bit. 6 foot was kind of the standard max in the old code, and I think there's reasons that could be changed or have a variance. And then really there was no inspection that was required in the old code, and that led to our building inspectors really kind of having a conundrum of seeing these things being built but not really being able to do a lot about it. So first of all, we tried to break it down and say, hey, we need to define better what these walls are. We broke them down into 2 separate types: a prescriptive gravity wall, which is basically like the boulder walls that you see in people's backyards and things like that, more decorative wall than a structural wall. Those can only be up to 4 feet tall. And then an engineered retaining wall is anything over 4 foot tall has to now be engineered. It has to have a professional engineer stamp, has to have a geotech looking at it and designing it. And then anything under 4 foot that has any kind of surcharge on it. For example, there's a house near it, or they're parking an RV, or anything with any substantial weight on top of it. If there's any kind of surcharge, then it has to be designed even if it's under the 4 foot. So that was one of the changes we made. Building permits, now tied to risk. And this was one that came from our building inspectors specifically, that it wasn't clear on the old code when a building permit was required. And so now it's pretty clear, I think, when it is a structural wall, when it is required to be designed by an engineer, then a building permit is required, and that gives them the authority to look at it. Walls 4 feet and under with no surcharge load remain permit exempt. And so again, if there's no surcharge, then someone can still just go in their backyard, build a 4 foot wall. It's fine. It doesn't mean that we won't look at it if it's built as part of a development. We'll still look at that wall and make sure it meets code, make sure it's safe. But if it's just a gravity wall under 4 foot with no surcharge, then no building permit's required there. Maximum height standards. This is one, like I said, it used to be 6 foot was the max. Anything over 6 foot wasn't even considered or looked at. We kept that for residential properties. I think that's still a good standard there. For commercial, industrial, institutional, and multifamily properties, we're proposing a 10 foot as a new maximum. And obviously that's in the zone where it has to be engineered. It has to have building permits. So it'll be looked at and properly designed. The reason for that is we were getting requests with a lot of these commercial developments, that even ones we've seen today that are pushing up into the foothills more. Most of our development has been down in the valley where there haven't been a lot of hills. We haven't really run into this, but we're getting into the foothills now, and for them to really use the property like they want to use it, Our old code was really restrictive to that. And having only a 6-foot height and then having a certain tier level, it just cut down on their usable space. And so we're proposing at this time to go to a 10-foot max, obviously being designed correctly by a professional engineer. And then just redefined how that's measured, because not all retaining walls are perfectly rectangular. In fact, almost none of them are. The other thing we changed was the tiering. If we have, for example, we go to the maximum 6 foot, but we want to do a tier, the old code said 1.5 times, or 9 foot would be the flat part before you could put another retaining wall. Just to bring that up to speed with common engineering practice, we suggested going to 2 times that. So if it's a 6-foot wall, we're talking about 12 foot now before they can go to the next one. And really that moves that second wall far enough away from the first one that it's not creating a surcharge on the first one. If they want exceptions to that, we have written it into the code that, yeah, you can have exceptions, but it still has to be fully engineered. A geotech has to buy off on it so that it's still a safe configuration. And whether that's anchors from the walls back into the soils to keep them more stable or to have more bulk, there's ways to design them so that they're safe, but they have to be engineered if it's less than 2 times the wall height. Engineering submittals was another big change. There wasn't a lot of definition as to what needed to be submitted to us as a city or us as the engineering department for us to look at. And so we wanted to clearly define, okay, it has to be professionally engineered, but we need to be able to see all the backup information and all the data so we can do a check on it rather than just seeing the stamp and saying, sure, it's okay. We actually want to do a check on that and make sure that everything is structural and sound. So inspection requirements, there weren't a lot of inspection requirements in the last code. We beefed this section up quite a bit, and we have sections that say this shall be inspected, although we leave it kind of vague as to what those inspections have to be, because it'll vary depending on the wall type, the wall height. There's a lot of variables there. I mean, we don't have to send an inspector out for every 4-foot wall. But it gives us the flexibility to be able to go out and do these inspections, especially for the taller walls. We want to be out there more often, checking those and making sure they're being built according to what was designed by the engineer. And then mechanically stabilized earth walls. Those ones are the ones that you see like on overpasses that UDOT's build. They're sometimes 20, 30 feet tall, and they're usually concrete type, almost look like a fence, a concrete fence, but it's stacked and it has anchors coming in the back. And those are very complicated. Structurally, there's nothing wrong with them, but it's very particular as to how it's built, what the compaction is, what materials you're putting behind those things. And so those ones, we had a little more strict requirement. If someone wants to do one of those types of walls, then there are very strict inspection requirements that have to be performed. Property line and easement standards. This one on the old standard, there was some conflicting information there. The old standard said the face of the wall has to be 3 foot from a property line, whether it's on the high side or the low side. You couldn't have that wall within 3 feet of that property line, but it also said that it couldn't be within any public utility easement, and most public utility easements are 5-10 feet. And so there was some conflicting information there. We left the standard that we don't want the face of the wall within 3 feet of any property line, and mostly that's for maintenance of that wall. If it's right on the property line and there's issues, it almost always leads to an argument between the two property owners. If it's 3 feet from that property line, it's clearly on one property or the other property. And then the old standard didn't address any kind of retaining wall that would span multiple properties. And so we addressed that here, that as long as the property owners are okay with that on both sides, we can span perpendicular to a property line, crossing a property line with a retaining wall, as long as both of those property owners are okay with that. And then the PUE question was the other one that we will allow that, but it's on a case-by-case basis. And that's one that we said it has to be written approval by the city engineer. We'll have to look at it and make sure we're not going to use that PUE in the future for any utilities for the city. I think we also said that other utility owners, the power company, the cable companies, it's typical of when you encroach onto a PUE to get permission from all of the utility companies saying that they don't need that PUE and that they can encroach on that. So this just kind of standardizes that and says the city engineer on the city side is the one giving approval. So quick summary and recommendation. We replaced most of the code. There was a lot of safety gaps. We tried to close those gaps, better define what engineering requirements are, differentiate the standard or the difference between residential and commercial standards. Those should be looked at differently, and then add some flexibility, as we just talked about, on the easements and the property lines. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation on this complicated code. It's, we know where we want to be from an engineering standpoint, 0 retaining walls, right?
Right, that'd be
Right?
easier.
No one wants to assume the risk, but of course,
Sure.
there's life there that has to be, so accommodation that have allowances that also protect the, ultimately the city will step in at some point. But thank you for the presentation and all that work. Questions for Vince on this or staff? Chad, Commissioner.
Yeah, so this is all new to me, first off, so if this is a dumb question, you can tell me so. But I'm curious if the term surcharge load is, I guess, sufficiently precise to enable someone to know how much loading or what constitutes enough of a surcharge to merit additional obligations under the code.
Yeah, and that's a good question, and it does define that somewhat in our code. It doesn't specifically state every single case that it could be, but there is a little bit of definition in the code that addresses that. If you feel that we need to beef that up a little bit and give it, add some more information there, we could do that.
I think my question is more, do you think it's workable from your perspective? Because I don't know.
Right. From an engineering perspective, when an engineer hears the word surcharge, according to the retaining wall, it means something specific, a load on top of the dirt that's being held back by that wall. And so it means something specific, and the engineers that will see this code will understand that. Yeah.
Okay. And I think it references temporary loads as well. How temporary? I mean, is that if a vehicle passes through during construction that triggers it, and maybe it does? I don't know.
Right. I would say temporary is more like something on a driveway where it's not always there. So more of a sporadic use, but something that, construction equipment during construction that will never be there again. I wouldn't see that as a temporary use.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think those are, talking shop with engineers from geotech. They'll get that right away based on soils and based on the height of the wall, the type of wall that's being chosen to be built, and all the other factors that go into what is it retaining, all those. So it is, yeah, those are pretty technical terms, but it's nice that it's in the form that the city is saying these have to be engineered. So it takes some of the guesswork out, even though the technical term can be confusing for a lot of folks, but at least gives you a little bit better. Yeah.
And I would say, I'm not going to pretend to always know when there's a surcharge, but I think, because I have to answer a lot of questions about retaining walls, I think sometimes having the vagueness helps, where I'd rather have, or building inspectors going out there a lot more often, and they do consultations, so if we clearly know it's a surcharge, I think we can tell people if they call in or ask about it, that yes, it's gonna require a permit, but I think we'd rather have our inspectors go out on site and look at it and determine it then, rather than just guessing, because I think we'd always play on the safer side, where we'd rather have people get permits if they need them, and be able to go out and verify them, rather than just people thinking, oh, it's not, or it is, because they feel like they clearly meet something, but if it's vague, they're more likely to ask. Again, I don't know if that's an advantage. It seems like an advantage to me, but I definitely get what Commissioner DeCourcy is asking as well.
Let me go to Commissioner Corsi first and then Commissioner Strong.
Sorry, I was just going to say, thank you, that's helpful.
Strong.
Yeah, I guess I like this. I'm glad to see us looking more from an engineering standpoint from retaining walls, because the problem with a retaining wall is the contractor builds something, leaves, and then we're stuck, or somebody's stuck with fixing it. And that's coming from a situation where I had a 6-foot retaining wall get a rainstorm and collapse in my backyard, and it wasn't my retaining wall. So I like to see a little more detail, a little more focus, and some more engineering gone into a retaining wall. So I think it's a great start. So that's where I'm at.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for your work on this. This is great. I'm assuming this is probably similar to other municipalities, like, so if an engineer's building one state to another, this is going to be relatively in line with what they're already seeing.
Right. We did do some comparing with neighboring cities, and it's similar. It varies a lot, obviously, from city to city, but yeah, we tried to pick the codes that were most applicable to Eagle Mountain.
Good, thank you. Good discussion. Any other comments? Okay, this is a public hearing. So it is 7:47. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing comment period. Any comments received? Okay, anybody wish to make comments? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and end the public hearing comment period at 7:47. And any final discussion with the Planning Commission? Okay, I will entertain a motion on agenda 7E. Chad, Commissioner DeCourcy.
Yes, I move that we forward a positive recommendation to City Council respecting the draft code changes in item 7E as discussed.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner DeCourcy for a positive recommendation to City Council, followed by a second by Commissioner Strong on this agenda item. Any questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and start with a vote with Commissioner Strong.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Commissioner Freak.
Yes.
Commissioner DeCourcy.
Yes.
And Commissioner Hess votes yes as well. Okay, that motion passes with 5 votes. And that concludes our advisory and action items. Any discussion items? Our discussion items next on the agenda. Anything that we need to discuss? Okay, our next scheduled meeting is in 2 weeks from today. And someone's going to know it. Oh, September 8th. Okay, so that's the day after Labor Day. So is there any commissioners, anybody know that they will be out of town? Okay. Well, hopefully nothing fun comes up in between now and then. If not, if it does, let me know ahead of time. Thank you for everybody being here, and I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:49.
Go ahead.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.